Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast. I'm Aiden and today's topic we're going to be looking at building around Deathshrouds. So as we all know, Deathshrouds are kind of the hot topic right now, and this episode is going to be all about building a good list around a core of a Deathshroud brick plus a Mortarion. And now quickly before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content, please feel free to leave a like and a subscribe on the video and on the channel. It helps us out massively, lets YouTube know you enjoy our content. And if you really enjoy it, consider becoming a Plague Marine member. You get access to our Discord, you get access to our music whenever you want to. We made some music for the streams and whatnot. Access to the Plague Surgery to get your list reviewed. All sorts of good stuff. We've got a great community. We've just hit our 500th Discord member. So there's a massive big community in there now. But don't feel like you can't find your place in it. Some communities, people are like, oh, it's so big, I won't get a place in there. It's not. It's really still tight-knit. Everyone's sort of always talking and stuff like that. It's really cool to see, and I'm super proud of it. But yeah, if you want to consider joining that, do feel free to consider that by hitting the join button below. But let's get into the meat and potatoes for today. So what are you here for? So Deathshroud. Why are we all talking about Deathshroud at the moment? Well, Deathshroud recently got a points decrease. They came down another 10 points for every 3-man. So now they're 110 points for 3 guys. So what do we get for this? Well, we're getting toughness 6, 3 wound bodies with a 2-up save and a 4+ invulnerable. That's pretty decent. That's a pretty good rate. On top of this, they also have the ability to be -1 to be wounded versus anything with higher strength if they're led by a character. Now we're looking at quite a durable unit. They also are rocking anti-infantry pistol flamers, which mean they're fantastic at getting, free from being bogged down. It's really hard to just tie them up because you've got all these amazing flamers. And anti-infantry means that no matter what toughness the target is against infantry, you're going to be able to wound them on 4s, which is really great. As well, on top of this, their melee profile is pretty damn good. 4 attacks each at hitting on a 2+, strength 8, AP 2 at base minimum. Bear in mind, we can get that all the way up to 5 technically, because you can go AP2 base, -1 save contagion, Ferric Blight for +1 AP, and any 6s to wound are going to be an additional AP on an infected objective marker. So it can hit real hard if you need to, which is great. You also have a sweep option, but we don't really talk about that because the sweep's kind of poo. Now, what also makes these guys great is the options for leaders. Deathshroud have really big options for leaders. You've got technically 5 different choices. Each of them brings something different to the table, which is really nice. You don't see many characters that can join squads like this, though it have so many different uses and so many different ways you play with the unit, and we'll get into them in a second. But it's really cool to know that Deathshroud can be customized by the choice of character that goes with them. And again, coming down to 110 points for free, it's kind of just a bit wild. Like 220 points for 6 of these dudes with these stat lines and these attacks. It's kind of getting to the point where they're becoming so points efficient. It's almost looking a bit like, why aren't you running Deathshroud at this point? Now, I'm not saying you have to run Deathshroud. Obviously, we never say that. We always say run what works best for you. But obviously, just bear it in mind that when certain things hit certain points brackets, it kind of just becomes a question of pure raw stats efficiency at that point. So what's the core of this list everyone's talking about? Well, to lead it all off, we've got Mortarion. Mortarion coming down to 300 points bang on, dropping 25 points, is kind of wild. Now, don't get me wrong, Mortarion is not a Magnus, he's not an Angron. But what he is, he's still toughness 12, fairly durable model. He's got a 2-up save, and he'll always get cover because it's dead easy to get cover. Just hide the tip of a wing behind a building. And he's got a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable, and a 5-up feel no pain with 16 wounds. And we have the capacity to heal him with stratagems. This makes a fairly durable model. And on top of this, he has a selection of auras. He can either boost contagion range, which is actually better than people ever think. An aura of always in cover, which is a bit mid. It's a bit meh. And the other one is an aura of real ones to wound, which admittedly compared to his brothers is pretty poo, but real ones to wound is still a nice aura to have. On top of this, he has the amazing ignore modifiers aura. So I've got an entire video dedicated to the aura, so I'm not going to go into it too much here, but it's a really strong aura to have, especially in certain matchups. Like you run into 3x5 Death Ring Knights, you could laugh at them because they don't get a rule. But at 300 points, he's just getting to the point where he's so points efficient for his stats that he brings, and he's okay in melee. He's not the best, but he can still slap some things, especially if he doesn't have an invul. That, again, it kind of becomes a question of why not Mortarion rather than why should I take Mortarion. It's a question of, well, just look at the points and his stats. It's like, ooh, that's kind of like, that's pretty tasty. And now you combine that with the 3x6 man Deathshroud Terminators, who are only 660 points for all of them, That is less than 1,000 points, 960, not even half the list, admittedly close. But it is very, very, very chunky amount of points there in some very durable statted units, which is really good to see. So everyone's kind of been thinking this is the new big craze, and I think it is pretty good actually after trying it out myself. I think it does have legs, and I'm looking to take it to an event this weekend and see how it does. Now, do you have to go the whole 18? Probably not. But in this instance, we're going to be looking at lists that go either the whole 18 or very close. The real question that's on everyone's mind right now is these are the no-brainers. What goes around that though? What is the 1,040 points you have to play around with, and how does it look? Well, we're going to look today at some examples of some lists from one from each of the guys on the podcast, so myself, Will and Dave. We've also got one from Quinton Johnson from Art of War, who recently played this list on stream and he's considering taking it to Worlds. So we'll get into that, and also thank you, Quinton, for stealing that. But we are going to hopefully have Quinton on either just before Worlds or just after Worlds to talk about his experience and how he feels about Deathguard, which I'm really looking forward to, because last time we had him on, it was a blast. So, first thing to talk about is what's actually missing from that list then. So we've got a nice core there. We've got 3 mega durable units and a Mortarion who's just chilling out. But it's missing some key aspects that make all good lists. The first thing is obviously scoring units. We don't really want our Primarch or our big Terminator squads stood around doing sabotage or stood around doing containment. We want to have units that are going to be able to stand in objectives, the safe ones anyway, and do actions and score us our points without us having to sacrifice our killing power and our mobility of our quite admittedly slow Terminators. So when we're looking at scoring units, again we're talking things like cultists, poxwalkers, even stuff like bloat drones and things like that are pretty good for it. But we just need to make sure we bring some units that are cheap and expendable that can be traded for actions and victory points, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have 3 really tough to kill bricks that can kill most things. If the opponent ends the game with more victory points than you do, you have lost. So it's very important we make sure we score. Next up is long range firepower. Now, shooting output and firepower is debated whether it's actually required in this list. Some people are eschewing it altogether and not including any. Others, like myself, like to still have access to some because I just like having that capacity. I don't like... my worst feeling in the world is when my opponent has guns and I don't, and I'm just like, great, I'm in this weird like trap of being like, I don't want to move out because I'm going to get shot, but I have nothing to punish them sitting on those firing lanes. So for me personally, this was quite a big component that I wanted to make sure I included. But do be aware that, again, the Deathshroud have the flamers. It's pretty alright, but it's not really going to be doing much outside of 12 inches. I mean, it's going to be doing literally nothing outside of 12 inches. So trying to reach far is definitely not going to be something this list naturally does. So maybe that's something you want to include. Speed is the next one. Deathshroud move 4 inches. It is an unescapable fact they are quite slow. That doesn't mean that they can't start on the board and walk across. We'll get into that again, because it's quite important that you keep at least 2 of your squads on the board and just keep going for advances, maybe CP rolling if you got to. But we need units that are going to be able to get faster and spread contagion. You know, again, we're talking about scoring units here. Sometimes you get engaged in all fronts, you need to be in that quarter, and you've got a 4-inch move Terminator. So there you're looking at stuff like bloat drones. Cultists, again, you've got like the scout move, you've got chaos spawn. Other forms of speed like deep strike, so you could bring some like Nurgle demons, like Beast of Nurgle, things like that. They can double up as a scoring unit and some speed. But having access to some speed in this list is quite nice. It means that you're not just going to get shot for 3 turns. You can put other threats in your opponent's face that they need to directly deal with straight away, which can give your Terminators like a turn or 2 to basically get into position. Next one, screening. This list obviously, now don't get me wrong, 3 squads of Deathshroud Terminators are not the worst thing to get charged in the world. Like if a World Eater player wants to run into them units, feel free. But at the same time, it's important we don't give our opponent free stuff like free deep strikes, free rapid ingresses. We still need to make sure we're screening out our home objective. Lots of 3-inch deep strikes at the moment. Colon's bullshit. So there's lots of things we need to be aware of at the moment. So bringing screening units is still fairly important. And last but not least, and we're going to look at in a second, is the character support. These Deathshroud kind of want characters. It's kind of going to, you know, change how you play them, change what they're good at, and it's also going to give them access to their -1 to be wounded rule. So we need to look at the characters we're going to bring to support our Deathshroud Terminators. So let's have a quick look at the character support. So I have done an entire video all about Terminator characters, so again, I'm not going to rag it on too far. This is the simplest way for me to break it down for you. Lord of Contagion is the highest damage increase for melee, because you're just going to punch real hard. He himself punches really hard, especially if you've bought Deadly Pathogen. You reroll all hit rolls, so if you come across someone with a high toughness, like toughness 13, you can just reroll everyone in the squad, all dice. It's called fishing. Fishing is when you reroll even hit rolls, so you hit on 2s, you roll them all out, you get all your 6s, and you reroll them all again, because you're just looking for those 6s. You are fishing for 6s to try and get lethal hits onto those really tough targets. On top of that, again, he brings more damage than any other character that can bring. With a flat damage 3, it's really, really nice. So he is the point-for-point best way to add damage to a squad. Melee damage. The Lord of Virulence is the highest damage increase for the shooting. Rerolling all wound rolls with those pistol flamers is really, really good. In a squad, you can have 8d6 flamers, basically, if you have a full squad plus Lord of Virulence. With full rerolls to wound, all anti-infantry, you can easily boost that AP up, and it also makes for an incredible Overwatch threat. Nobody wants to pass the unit that has 8d6 anti-infantry flamers rerolling all wounds. So it's a very good board control area lockdown character as well. And the Sorcerer Terminator has the highest durability increase, provided you're obviously talking about melee here. He also has a Casino Cannon, because I forgot to put the N on. But on a 2-up in the fight phase, he gives the squad -1 damage. If you're in melee matchups, this guy is insanely powerful, because if anyone's got 2 damage, it's just a 50% damage gone instantly, which is really, really wild. On top of that, he has his obvious Casino Cannon, so he's once per game can turn his gun into a 2d6 shot, strength 8, AP 2 minimum, flat 3 damage weapon. Sometimes it pops off and picks up an entire unit, sometimes it does nothing, but the main reason you're bringing him is for that 2-up -1 damage there. Now, Chaos Lords, there's an argument to be made. I wouldn't really recommend them, general. I think the other characters are just better, and Typhus I'm not going to talk about, because Typhus is Typhus, and Typhus is probably going to be in your list anyway, because Typhus is crazy good. So, you can definitely put Typhus in one of your squads, put it that way. So, let's have a look at some example lists. All these lists are going to feature the core of Deathshroud plus Mortarion. Now, not all of them include 18. I think most of them do, pardon me, because I'm weird. But they all take the list in their own little direction. These little changes that basically allow people to tailor the list to their own personal playstyles. But one thing I want you guys to do while you're watching this is to look for shared units between the lists. Because if a unit is being used in more than one of our lists, there's a chance there's a reason for that, and that's because it's fulfilling one of those roles that we talked about before, which is going to be important to making a successful list. So if you see us all running cultists, it's probably a good idea that if you want to run a list like this, that you go and pick up some cultists. Now, we're also going to be making various use of allies. Some of us are using quite a lot of allies, some of us are using quite little allies. So again, it's another thing for you to look at, analyze, and be like, okay, do I like allies? Do I want to bring allies? Or do I want to bring pure Death Guard? And those are choices you can make, because if you just want to play pure Death Guard, you can happily take one of our lists, cut out the allies bit, and then just fiddle around with those points and see what you can get in there. Whereas if you like allies, we've got a mixture of demons and war dogs here for you guys to look at as well. So let's get into it. So first up, we'll start with Quinton Johnson himself from Art of War. Now, Quinton, he played this game on stream. I will try and put, I'll remember if I can. I'm so bad at remembering links. I'll put the description to the game that they played live on stream on their channel in the description below. It was Death Guard versus Dark Angels with Lennon. Very good triple Vindicator list, triple Death Ring Knights, Inner Circle Companions. Very scary, very strong list. And this is what Quinton played against it. So we had Mortarion, Typhus, 2 Terminator Sorcerers, one of them rocking the Living Plague Contagion, that's the extra Contagion range. 3 squads of 10 Cultists, 3 squads of Deathshroud Terminators, obviously, all 6-mans, 3 Fetid Bloatdrones with the Spitters, 2 units of Nurglings, a Beast of Nurgle, and Rotigus. So Quinton here has taken the aspect of leaning into the durability skew and gone with it. He's got Mortarion there, so you've got this big, tough T12 model. Great. He's now going to pair that up with Rotigus, the T12 demon model, with it also with a 4-up invulnerable. So you've got 2 toughness 12 models there. Both with a 4-up invulnerable at worst. One with tons of wounds with 22 on Rotigus. Morty's got the 6-up, but he also has a better armor save and feel no pain. Now, that is already really tough to deal with at the same time. But on top of that, we've got 3 squads of Deathshroud Terminators, all with characters, all rocking -1 to be wounded. In the game, he took -1 weapon skill, ballistic skill. So again, all these guys are going to be harder to hit as well. You have Miasma Pestilence ready to, Cloud of Flies it's called now, on a stick to give something -2 to be hit. The Terminator Sorcerers are giving all their units -1 damage, so in close combat those Deathshroud are really hard to deal with. They're -2 to be hit, -1 to be wounded, and -1 to damage, which is incredibly powerful. He also has Typhus in one of his units of Deathshroud to give them the native -2 to be hit, and these are also being backed up by Nurglings who can obviously stick around with their own -1 to be hit versus anything that's not a vehicle or monster, aura, which is just going to make these Deathshroud, especially in a melee matchup, absolutely miserable to try and deal with. But on top of this, Quinton's obviously realised that's a great durable thing, but that is in essence 5 units. You've got Mortarion, Rotigus, 3 units Terminators. Very tough, very durable units and very killy, but not exactly going to be scoring you many points. So he's gone for 3 squads of 10 cultists. So now you've got nice 3 different squads running around that can hold objectives, do actions, and just kind of like spread out around the board. You've also got 3 vetted bloat drones, all with spitters. So this is bringing the scoring, it's bringing the speed to the list that it severely lacks with the rest of its list. But again, if you have some bloat drones come up aside, does your opponent commit to trying to deal with the spitters before they get in range and let Rotigus, Mortarion, and the Deathshroud approach, unimpeded? Or do you just let the bloat drones do the thing while you try and hold back the tide of Terminators? And you'll see in the game, Quinton tries to expose all of it basically on the same turn. He wants his big go turn. That's kind of how it plays because it's got all this durability and he wants to maximize it. You don't feed out one unit at a time because it's just going to get focused down and killed. It needs to all come out. On top of this, he's also got a Beast of Nurgle in there. Again, it can just deep strike, it can do an action, just lets him have that extra bit of flexibility on those tactical cards that he's going to play. But overall, this is obviously quite a small unit count. But again, with the points that he had left after Rotigus inclusion, he's gone all in on like trying to get as much MSU as he can. So he's got 3 squads of cultists, 3 solo bloat drones. Again, they can only be solo, they're not haulers, and a Beast of Nurgle. So he managed to fit in 7 units after the core of it all, which is really nice to see. Now, he has said after his game he maybe wishes he had a bit more shooting, so he's maybe looking at swapping some bloat drones to haulers, but I'm sure when he comes on, maybe we'll see his list change for Worlds. He'll talk about that himself. But this is a very cool list. So if you want the idea of using Mortarion, Rotigus, and the 18 Shroud, this is a really cool list, and it obviously works for him because he managed to, spoiler alert, skip the game. Don't skip the game. Skip 10 seconds. He won. Very close though, so it was a great game. I definitely recommend checking it out. Yeah. So next up, Aiden Smalley, the guy in the corner. Woohoo, big up me. This is my rendition of the list. So I'm rocking Mortarion, Typhus, 2 Terminator Sorcerers as well, a lot of Contagion with Deadly Pathogen, a Tallyman, so quite a lot of characters admittedly. I then have 3 squads of 10 Cultists, 2 squads of 6 Deathshroud Terminators, 1 squad of 3 Deathshroud Terminators, 1 squad of 20 Poxwalkers, 3 Predator Destructors with Las Cannons, 2 squads of Nurglings, and a Beast of Nurgle. So once again, I've kind of gone down 3 Terminators. I think 2 times 6 is enough for me. I'm not really a big stat checky player, but again, I'll take 2 massive bricks. But I've brought Lord of Contagion so I can flex him into that 3-man squad because he brings enough damage to the squad. That's going to be a Rapid Ingress squad. So that's going to be the squad that's dropping down, Rapid Ingress, trying to get into something and using that absurd damage output of the Deadly Pathogen Contagion Lord to do a lot of damage. The other 2 are more focused on being durable with the Terminator Sorcerers. And this also frees up my Typhus to go solo, because again, Typhus can do his mortal wounds whilst doing actions and things. It means that Typhus and the Beast of Nurgle, I have 2 lone deep strikers that can deep strike in and do actions, and the Typhus obviously has the bonus to be flexible where he goes, so wherever I need the mortal wounds the most, I can make sure he's there, and if I can do an action while I'm doing it, even better. So I like that, but it also gives me the option of, if I come across, let's say, an enemy that has some really weird unit, has loads of really scary 1 damage attacks, I can detach a sorcerer from a big 6-man, that can go solo. I can put Typhus in the 6-man squad, slap on the minus weapon skill, ballistic skill, contagion, and now that squad's -2 to be hit permanently. I have the flexibility to swap it around, and if I come across something like a monolith, I can put Lord of Contagion in a big 6-man squad, rapid ingress that, try and get into it, and try and one-tap it because of the the damage output increase that he gives. I'm also rocking the 10 cultists, the 3 times 10 cultists, because again, as I said before in Quinton, nothing has changed. It's still just really good, really flexible. 50 points unit's great. I'm rocking a solo Tallyman to sort of sit on home objective here. I kind of want to have quite a bit more CP to play with. So, but this is kind of like experimental, so I've never used him before solo, so we'll see how that goes. But again, it just means I don't have to commit too much to holding home. However, in the 3-inch deep strike meta, I am worried. So I have brought along a unit of 20 Poxwalkers. I think it's actually very flexible at the moment to have 20 Poxwalkers. Some armies really struggle to deal with that, like against Blood Angels. I put that into the middle point. It's like, cool, what do you kill it with? Your 2 Ballista Dreadnoughts aren't going to kill it, which means you have to bring out an actual melee unit to kill it. And if you want to come and trade like 6 Blade Guard and a Judicar for 20 Poxwalkers, I'll take that trade any day, Sonny Jim. So I really like them for that. And worst case scenario, come across a matchup where they will die if I expose them, I'll just leave them on home. It's 100 points to screen my entire home field out. 3-inch deep strike, not even a chance, mate. You're going to be so far away from the 3-inch because I'm going to spread them all out max I can. You ain't getting near that objective. So I like that flexibility. Now, I quite value my long-range firepower, so I've gone for 3 Predator Destructors just to keep my opponents humble. They're super cheap gun platforms for the moment. Paired with Mortarion there to give them the real ones to wound, they can actually become quite efficient. I play them in strat reserves quite a lot as well. So I just like having the access to, if you look at the game that Quinton played, when the Vindicators were sat there taking shots, they lived all game and they all got to shoot every turn. I just want to have something to be like, yo, you're shooting me, I'm going to shoot you back. It just makes me feel a bit more comfortable with how I kind of play my game. And again, down the bottom, 2 squads of Nurglings for the infiltrate, also for the -1 to hit aura in case I get a melee matchup, which is really nice. And a Beast of Nurgle because, again, solo, like I said before, it works alongside Typhus, can just deep strike in somewhere, score some points. Again, if it dies, okay, fair enough. If it doesn't die, brilliant, it can carry on scoring things. But yeah, this is my rendition of the list. I've played it on TTS. A couple of guys from the Discord actually tuned in and watched me playing that live. And I was quite happy with it. So I'm going to take this to the GT this weekend. Maybe make a little change to it. We'll see. I'm kind of want to get some bloat drones in, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is kind of like the core I'm looking at right now. Then we got Wardog Will, so Wardog Enthusiast William. Mortarion, triple Terminator Sorcerers, one with Living Plague. Tallyman, I don't know if he has Living Plague, he might not. I might just accidentally left that over by the copy paste. If the points are 20 points over, he doesn't have Living Plague. And a Tallyman. 3 squads of 10 cultists, so again, those cultists just coming in every list. Really, really good. 3 squads of 6 Deathshroud Terminators, so he's got a Terminator Sorcerer in every single one of them. He's gone for 2 Predator Destructors with las cannons, 2 Nurglings, and 2 Wardog Stalkers. Will's really liking the Stalkers at the moment. Now, admittedly, people have been asking why not Brigand, why not Carnivore. Yes, they are probably better at the dedicated roles, but Will wants a unit that can threaten both melee and shooting because it means they're a bit harder to deal with. So he's been playing them quite a lot in strategic reserves. So the Terminators kind of like, take positions, mid-board. The Predator Destructors keep people honest for the first turn or two, just trade some shots. And then when the War Dog comes in, it's kind of like the go turn, the exposed turn. Now, admittedly, for me, Will's a little light on the scoring unit, so I would be a little nervous on that. But Will potentially has a lot more damage output, a lot more threat in how he's projecting because he has 2 big War Dog Stalkers coming in with the full 3 Deathshroud Terminators, and he's still got 2 Predators at home firing away. So the cool thing about the War Dogs as well is they bring some battle line to this game with the Nurglings, and they're OC 8 because this list can severely lack on OC at some point. So having the ability to just tap on, steal objectives is something that normally I'd achieve with like 5 Plague Marines and a Rhino just jumping out. I have lost that capability, which is kind of annoying, but the War Dogs keep that in there. And Will's had success with this. He went 2-1 at his RTT, only losing very closely to Andy Quast Cohen, who is literally stomping like so many events. He's going to Worlds with his Necrons very soon, and he won I can't remember, it was Coventry. He won the Coventry 2-dayer, and he won the big UKTZ Super Major before that with his Hypercrypt Necrons. And he normally, when Will plays against him, he gets absolutely slammed. No offense, Will. But this was actually a very close game. I think it was only 10 points in it between them. And that is Hypercrypt Necrons played by someone that only has played that list with the Tesseract, the Vault, all that, against this list you see here. And it did very well. So it's clearly got something going for it. So super happy to see that. So if you like War Dogs, this could be the list for you. And then coming up last in here, we've got Death Guard Dave, who actually owns 36 Deathshroud, I'm pretty sure. He's rocking Mortarion, Terminator Sorcerer, single one, Typhus, Lord of Contagion, so he's got nice little mixture of units there. 3x10 Cultists, 3x6 Deathshroud Terminators. He's also gone for the Triple Predator Destructor. He's also included 2 squads of Fletted Bloat Drones. This is kind of like what I wanted in my list, was the Bloat Drones, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to give up too many things. To my little utility units with the Poxwalkers, etc. But again, this adds the long range firepower. It has more speed than the other list because it's got the bloat drones in there that I don't. But again, the 3x10. I mean, you probably sat there right now, like, if you don't have 2 squads of cultists, I'd probably go pick up at least 2 squads of cultists. At least 2 squads of cultists in a list like this makes it so much better instantly. It's so nice to have. But again, this has the long-range firepower to keep people humble and shooting away, and the bloat drones can either play distraction, the bloat one's got a blight launch, which means it can play wide angles and just chip away at stuff. But again, it's the same kind of core concept of this wants to keep you sort of like being shot at, so destructors are trading while the Deathshroud Terminators slowly move up the board. They get into a good spot, and then basically once they start making it into combat, it becomes a lot trickier here. So Dave is shooting for the full squads of 3 6-mans. I've obviously dropped one of them down to a 3-man and used the points elsewhere. But there's nothing wrong with that. Like, again, 3 times 6 is very, very strong. But in this list, for Dave, it's a weird mixture of like mine and Will's, because it's gone for the 3 predators like I have. It's got the drones that are from Will's list, but obviously there's no war dogs there. But you can see the nice little character package he's got. He's got a little bit of everything, so he's very flexible. One of his squads is going to hit mega hard with a lot of contagion. One of them's going to be quite durable with the Terminator Sorcerer, and one of them's kind of like kind of does everything because it's a Typhus squad. So he's got, you know, -1 to be hit. He's got the actual damage-free weapon, so it's quite nice to see. But yeah, these guys, these are just some example lists for you to look at. Obviously, there was Garrett Stacey, who was on the Infection Critical week last week, who's running quite a lot of Plague Marines with his, so go check that one out as well. But yeah, it's really cool, like the different builds and the different ways you can go. But there are some things you will see a lot, which is for like us guys, it's definitely the cultists and the inclusion of Nurglings, really. But what do you plan to put with your 18? The good thing is there's still plenty of options, and it really does show me that although our index and our units may not be as powerful as other books in the game at the moment, and maybe not the greatest, and maybe we wish they were stronger, but in terms of internal balance, our book's great. We have so many options that are all viable. Now, whether they're all viable because they're all a little poo is a different question, but I don't think they are, but it's a different question. I still love the fact that our book has so many valid options and viable options, but it all comes down to the questions that are below here. So, do you value your long-range shooting? What's going to be scoring your secondaries? Do you lean harder into the skew, or do you just have the 18 as the skew and maybe look elsewhere for other things? So, like, you complement and try and make a more balanced and well-rounded list. But the one thing I'm excited to hear from you guys is, what have you guys been playing with? And let me know in the comments your thoughts on what you should put with the 18, and maybe what I should try out with my 18, because there's still tons of room to experiment. It's only been out in like 2 or 3 weeks at this point. I got my first event coming this weekend, so I'm super excited to try them out. It's not my kind of list, this. I really don't do skewy lists, I do toolboxy lists, so I've tried to incorporate a weird toolboxy element. But again, we'll see how it goes. But I am excited to get a lot of Deathshroud on the table and just see how it goes, because worst case, it'll be a lot of fun. But for now, everyone, that's all I've got time for today. So thank you very much for tuning in. Again, if you did like the video, do remember to leave a like and a subscribe. And if you really enjoy it, consider becoming one of our great, fantastic YouTube members here. Thank you so much to those guys' continued support. You can go and check out our friends over at Vanguard Tactics as well. Check out the videos they do, bat reps, lessons, academies just open, all sorts of great stuff. So go and check those guys out. If you're in the UK and you're considering buying some Warhammer products, maybe consider buying from Element Games using our affiliate link in the description below. You get some extra crystals, we get some extra crystals, let them know we sent you, everybody wins. And last but not least, if you are interested in picking yourself up some disgustingly resilient gaming aids, check out Saltire Games Etsy, link in the description below, promo code NURGLE, you get a little percentage off your order and let us know we sent you. And if you want to pick up some Deathguard merchandise, some disgustingly resilient merchandise, sorry, check out our store link just below here. It should just be popping up somewhere, or check us on the channel. We've got loads of different shirts and things like that. We're working on some commission designs as well right now to get some even cooler things out for you. So do check that out if you fancy it. But for now, everyone, regardless of all of that, thank you just so much for tuning in. And I hope to catch you all on the next episode. Stay rotten for now, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.